Hey guys, it's Tony Milo with the Fantasy Football Ins and Outs podcast. Now, let's get right into it. For today, I'm going to be starting off with my Week 1 shockers. These are both good and bad, but I'm going to start with the good. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. I'm going to pair them together. They both torched a very bad Vikings defense. Aaron Rodgers had almost 31, and Davante Adams had over 41. So, just both huge games, and I don't know if I trust it too much. They're not going to be doing this on a weekly basis, but they both looked very good. Even against, a weak Vikings secondary, I still think that they've looked very good and has huge promise for this whole season. Then to DeAndre Hopkins. He was a huge part of the offense. There was a question mark how many targets he might get a game, how involved he'll be. 14 catches against the 49ers in his first game is huge. 49ers have an elite defense, and the fact that he got that many targets and that many catches, huge start. Cam Newton, he looked great. He was actually running. Who would have thought Bill Belichick would have had a mobile QB after having Tom Brady for so long? Then Jamison Crowder, he might be a borderline flex play for the whole season. He was the one bright spot on the Jets, getting all these targets, catches, very good player. Josh Jacobs, he was legit. Honestly, he was great the whole game, 35-plus fantasy points. He's not going to get 3 touchdowns every game, but this segment's called my Don't Overreact segment. It's just for, don't overreact if your guy has one bad game, and even if he's a top player. So, number 1 on my list is Nick Chubb. Come on, the Ravens' defense is legit. Their offense wasn't moving that well, and he didn't score well, but it's just, it's a Ravens defense. You can't trust anything against that defense. I'd wait and see how he does against the Bengals, and then see if you're going to overreact or not. And the second one is Mike Evans. He wasn't 100%. He was hurt. He had a hamstring problem. Yes, he scored a touchdown, and I think that was his only catch of the game, so not a great game from him, but he was hurt, and you can't trust that. So I think he's still, a player that you don't overreact for. And then now Peyton Barber. Don't overreact and try to pick him up. He had 29 yards on 17 carries. That's under 2 yards a carry. He had 2 touchdowns, yes, but I don't think they're going to be in that position every week. The Eagles really struggled, so just don't expect too much from Peyton Barber. Don't go running at him on the fantasy wire. And then the last one is Joe Mixon. Honestly, the Chargers defense is legit, and I wouldn't react too much for him having a bad week 1. Joe Burrow and that team just struggled most of the game because of how strong the defense was. And that offensive line isn't great, sure, but Mixon should be better in the next game. Now, here's my Week 1 waiver wire. The number 1 is Hines. Come on, he had 27.3 points. He had 15 touches and 2 touchdowns. And Marlon Mack got hurt. So now he's going to be even more involved, and he was super involved in the pass game, more than any other running back on the Colts. It's going to be a huge season for him. Just think, Eckler last season. This is the Eckler of this season possibly for Phillip Rivers. He likes to throw to his running backs, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hines has a good year. So, honestly, he's the number 1 on my waiver wire. And then number 2, Malcolm Brown. He's the big part of a Rams 3-headed running game, so it's kind of scary to buy into it with the 2 other running backs there. But, again, it's a waiver wire pickup. He had 18 carries in week 1 and had 2 rushing touchdowns. And he had 3 catches, so 21 touches in week 1, and he's not on a roster right now in fantasy leagues. I would risk it and pick him up. Maybe bench him for a couple weeks, see if he keeps up that high level, and see if, he just is able to get anywhere near that, and see if his carries get cut. That's the big thing. Another guy you might want to pick up is Valdez-Scantling. Sure, he's the second receiver, maybe even the third one, but honestly, he had a big game week 1, and he might be that secondary receiver to Davante Adams, and Aaron Rodgers is playing really well. Maybe risk it on him. He had a big 19.6 in week 1, so maybe have him on your bench, as an option just in case somebody gets injured or something like that. And for tight ends, Dallas Goedert, he had a huge week 1, and honestly, I don't see it really slowing down. Sure, they have Zach Ertz and Goddard, but Goddard looked good in week 1, and he was getting the targets, so honestly, I would look into picking him up as a possible backup tight end or even starting tight end. Now, this is my last segment of today's podcast. There's still 2 games coming out today, but I'm going to give my reactions on teams in general, just not fantasy output. So, week 1, I think the Patriots are a little bit too overhyped. Sure, Cam Newton's good. I just don't think you can take everything from that Dolphins game. They played well, but I don't trust it completely. Then, I want to go on to say that I thought, honestly, the Seahawks were really, really good. They looked like possible Super Bowl contenders. Sure, again, that Falcons secondary isn't great, but, they had such a good game that, honestly, it looked great. Then the Cardinals are legit. They actually beat the 49ers, and their offense looked very good, and Kyler Murray looked legit. Then I'm just going on, and the Saints looked good, and the Buccaneers, Tom Brady didn't have the best debut, but come on, it is what it is. Then I'm going to the Browns, man. I don't even know if Baker Mayfield's going to make it to the end of the season. He had a rough week, and I don't know if I see him making it to the end of the year. Leave your reactions to week 1 in the comments below. That's the end of the podcast. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.